And so I woke up and I did that, and she started crying and I started crying. And that's when I knew how close I was to dying. I woke up and I was like,
you walk out there and they're like, oh yeah, there's that.
Scot Pollard.
No way.
She goes, this isn't about you. This is about me and your kids. And that was the verbal slap in the face I needed because I was being selfish.
The fact that you are grateful, your life gets extended, that comes out others' despair. How did you deal with that? From South Bend to Evansville and everywhere in between, this is Get In, the show focused on the Hoosier State and the incredible stories happening here today. I'm Nate Spengel, founder of Get Indiana, and I will be your host for today's conversation. Cluster Truck is built for whatever kind of hunger you're dealing with. Late night cravings, covered. Family dinner, easy. Office lunch, of course. From hand-stretched pizzas and house-made mac and cheese to fresh tacos and salads, the menu runs deep and everyone finds something they're craving. Ordering for a group? Cluster Truck makes it simple. You can place one group order and pay together or separately, so nobody's sending money or doing math at the table. It just works. On top of that, Cluster Truck moves fast. Your food might even show up before this episode ends. Ready to eat? Use code GETIN at checkout for $5 off orders of $25 or more. Order now at clustertruck.com and truck on. Scot Pollard is a former NBA center who played 11 seasons in the league after starring at the University of Kansas. He was drafted 19th overall in the 1997 NBA draft by the Detroit Pistons. He then went on to win an NBA championship with the Boston Celtics in 2008. In 2024, he underwent a life-saving heart transplant at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, a journey later documented by ESPN's E60. I'm really excited to dive into this journey from California to Kansas to Detroit, winding up in Indianapolis, and then continuing to call Carmel, Indiana home. Scott, I'm excited to talk today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Nate.
Okay, so this whole journey is a wild one. If anyone have seen any parts of the ESPN's, like the documentary.
It's called Heart of Pearl.
Yeah, Heart of Pearl. This, like the ending, not even the ending, but like the most recent part of the story is an incredible part, and I'm really excited to dive into that. But the beginning of the story is also incredible as well. This starts in a beach town in California in a very affluent area, but you didn't grow up in a life of wealth. Talk to me about growing up out on the West Coast.
So I was born in Utah and I was raised there for elementary school. I went to 4 different elementary schools because my dad lost everything when I was little. He was very, very successful asphalt paving company, like the second or third biggest company in Utah at the time. And then he lost everything. There's conspiracy theories about that. My 2 oldest brothers, my dad went to the University of Utah. My 2 oldest brothers chose BYU. And suddenly my dad started getting contracts canceled and lost his whole business. So I don't know if they two were intertwined, but it was very closely after my brothers decided to go to BYU and not Utah. So anyway,
there's a whole side episode we can get with. Like,
wow. So we immediately became poor and we moved a lot. I went to 4 different elementary schools. We rented, and my dad did what he could. And somehow the decision was, hey, we're moving to either Phoenix or Del Mar. I don't know how this poor family that, my mom and dad still had myself and 1 brother still at home of 6 kids. I was the youngest, and there was 2 of us left in home. Everybody else had moved on at this point. And we moved to Del Mar, California, one of the most expensive places, if not the most expensive place in the world to live. We rented, and my dad was unemployed for 9 months or so. We were on government assistance.
And how old were you at this time?
7th grade.
You're 7, which is like a formative time.
Yeah.
You think about like when, I don't know, brands start to matter, what you're wearing, and like, what you're doing.
Yeah. And my whole family's Mormon, and the church helped us out quite a bit. We would get food delivered a lot. And to this day, I refuse to eat lasagna. I won't eat it because I'm scarred because that was associated with my childhood of like people bringing us food, and I hate getting stuff. I hate being the receiver of gifts because of that. It's
like between, that aspect, or like when there's like a death in your family and people think that like pie and desserts cure cancer or whatever it might be. And it's like, I just, from those, it's like people show up and it's like, here's a pie, here's cookies, and it's like, oh gosh, I can have food for the next like 6 months,
Yeah. And you have to remember it's the thought that counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just, we bounced around in San Diego to Del Mar. Ended up at Torrey Pines High School.
How did being different How, like, you think about Torrey Pines High School, this is you talked about people driving insane exotic cars to high school.
Yeah.
And at that time, you know, you guys are still like government assistants, not the most wealthy.
Yeah.
You know, how was that shaping? Was it building a chip on your shoulder?
Absolutely, especially after my dad died when I was 16.
Yeah.
My mom left and went to go to Washington State to go live with my oldest brother because we didn't have anything left to pay rent. Like, my dad died and he was working when he died.
What did he pass away from?
The same thing I ended up getting diagnosed with.
No way.
Yeah. So we finally got him to go to the doctor in 1990, late 1990. He kept getting pneumonia, and the doctor pulled him in. He goes, "Look, I'm surprised you drove here. Like, how I don't even know how you're awake." His heart was really bad.
Yeah.
His EF was like 12.
What's EF?
It's your ejection fraction percentage. A normal sized human should be 60 to 65, maybe a little above that. No one's 100.
12?
His was 12. And he was 6'9", 380 pounds. And part of that probably is water retention because his heart wasn't pumping. But anyway, he gets diagnosed and the doctor's like, look, transplant's not an option. In 1990, 1991, your donor had to be exactly your size. Well, he joked we could go down to the San Diego Zoo and get a gorilla, but you know, I don't know if anything else.
6'9", 380.
Yeah, that was my dad.
I mean, he could have had a career of like playing for the Chargers at that point.
Well, he played basketball for a long time. He played at the University of Utah, then he played semi-pro for a while. And he's a legend. He's in the State of Utah Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so they talk about that in the documentary Heart of Pearl. They did a deep dive on him. He's a legend. Everybody knew who my dad was in Utah, and maybe that's why he said it was just time to go. Yeah. Because of the downfall of his business. And I don't know. I was a little kid. So
yeah. And if you build something and you start to see that fall from grace and you've been a legend in this space, like getting a fresh start can be good for the mentals a little bit there.
Yeah.
And so you're 16 and
he dies. My mom leaves. And so I don't say homeless, but I was living with friends. I would just go whoever could take me in for a while. That was my junior year of high school.
And at that point, were you an excellent basketball player?
Oh yeah, I was getting recruited already by everybody. I got my first recruiting letter in 7th grade, back when they used to send actual snail mail letters.
Who was the first one from?
Jim Boeheim, Syracuse.
Oh no, what?
Yeah.
You're 7th grade. And it's
grade.
Not like a form letter.
No,
There's
it was
a real
Scott.
letter.
We're interested in, we're gonna be whatever.
Because nowadays it's like you get all these like camp and like it's like a
come to my
letter.
AAU team and we'll pay you and all that stuff.
This was the Syracuse Jim Boeheim from
Boeheim.
Syracuse sends you as a 7th grader.
Mm-hmm. Now I got to take partial credit because I was 6'2" at the time. But again, I'm the youngest of 6. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. My oldest brother is the shortest. He's only 6'9", and he was really good.
Your oldest brother's these chairs might make us look even. Okay, so wait, what was the roster height?
6'9", 7'3". My sister's 6'2", 7 foot, and I'm 6'11". And people always say, like, well, you're so close to 7 foot, why don't you just round up? Because my brothers used to kick the shit out of me when I rounded up. So,
You got a 7'3" brother?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
We're giants, all of us. My mom's 6'2", my dad was 6'9", like I said. My sister's 6'2", so we was gonna be big.
Did your other siblings play?
All of them played Division I. My sister turned down Division I basketball and volleyball offers because
How tall's your sister?
6'2". And she could play, but she just had ankles and bad feet, and she was just like, I don't want to get surgery. I'm just done. And so she didn't choose to play, but she could have played Division I.
So this is okay. This is good. When you think about the potential for the conspiracy theory, it wasn't just to like attend BYU; it was to play at BYU.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a deeper
because my dad was a
rivalry.
legend at the University of Utah basketball, and then his 2 big giant sons choose BYU and not Utah.
Yeah.
So that kind of leans into
That.
it.
Okay, that
and
actually
then it kind of directs the rest of the brothers, the boys, because there was 5 of us. That's a big loss.
I mean, that's like
to the University of Utah community.
What's the age gap between all of you?
They are all a year apart. They were born from 63 to 70. And then I was born in 75.
Okay.
Like that. 69
So you're talking about a decade worth of centers, though.
Yeah.
You've got your big men for a decade there, which is wild.
There's a pile of giants. And so speaking of conspiracy theories, I'm pretty sure that's how we ended up at Torrey Pines High School. My high school basketball coach, John Farrell, at the time was running the biggest high school basketball tournament in the country in Las Vegas. He's from New York. He gets kicked out of New York for bending rules.
Yep.
And he's in Las Vegas where you can go and bend the rules and nobody really looks too hard at you. And so he was affiliated with Nike pretty close. Sonny Vaccaro was a big deal. I heard that name a lot.
Yeah.
And we always wore Nikes. So there was some connection there with Nike. And I think that he possibly promised my dad a job if we moved there. Because again, I had one brother still in the house. He was going to be a senior in high school and he was a 7-footer. And then me coming in at 7th grade at 6'2", assuming I'm going to be another giant. So I think this high school coach tried to help us out a little bit. And there might have been some other people in the church saying, hey, yeah, he's got a good basketball program. Why don't you come live here and we'll help you out? I don't know who got my dad a job, but nobody did for a while.
Yeah, right. He was unemployed for 9 months.
Yeah, for a while. And so anyway, after he passed, I lost my mind. I quit basketball for 2 weeks and I went completely insane. And then I was like, I need to do this. And so that's when I really fell in love with basketball. I always, I was a beach kid. I loved being in the water. I tried surfing. I wasn't very good at it, but I'd surf once in a while. And body surf and boogie board and all that stuff. And I played beach volleyball. I was actually really good at volleyball. I got recruited to play volleyball as well.
Oh, I could definitely see that. I mean,
San Diego, it's an indoor sport in high school. So I was playing 6-man. I played beach on the summer and 6-man in the spring. I was player of the year in San Diego for volleyball and basketball. I think I was the first player to ever do that. And got recruited. Like I said, there was like UCLA really wanted me to play basketball. And they're like, we'll even let you play volleyball here if you come here. So like they wanted me to play both.
Yeah. And where did you realize along this journey that you like, one, you have the height, which is, you're going to get letters for that. But where did you realize that you were a real factor and that basketball could be a career for you?
Not until my senior year of college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was a thought. It was a dream. It was a hope, but it wasn't realistic to me until senior year of college because I got recruited by everybody. I told everybody on the East Coast, like Mike Krzyzewski, I was like, I don't even know where Duke is. I'm sorry. I'm not coming all the way there. I didn't want to go east of the Mississippi. I just told everybody on the East Coast, North Carolina, Jim Boeheim, everybody. I was just thank you, but I don't know where you are.
Was there a lot of stress, a lot of pressure there? I mean, you talk about being almost like an object that people want.
Yeah.
And that they're like, seeking you. You're 7th grade, you're getting letters from Division I basketball coaches and like going through when I was in high school, I would not have the mental fortitude to like process through like where I'm going to spend the next 4 years and all of the, I would say, repercussions of those decisions.
Luckily, my dad was a college athlete and all 4 of my brothers had been through it. And all 4 of my brothers ended up transferring. They, like I said, they're Mormon. They went on their missions. They'd come home and their coach was fired or left for a better job. So they all ended up transferring because the new coach is like, I didn't recruit you. I don't want you. And so I learned from that. And that helped. My dad was still alive, obviously, until I was beginning of my junior year, fall of my junior year. And so I had his guidance as well.
How does that process work? Because your brothers go to BYU. They have to go on their mission. Is that 2 years?
Back then, it was 18 months.
18 months. So is it after high school?
One of them redshirted his freshman year, and then he went on his mission. The next one, I think, went on his mission. So he was gone when the other one got back, the older one got back, and then the coach was fired.
Yeah.
So
they wouldn't have even ended up at the school, like able to play until they were like 20?
Sometimes.
So
that's why BYU football team has always been good. And now the battle is leveling out because you guys got guys like Signetti that are like, oh, that's the formula. 24-year-olds beat 20-year-olds. Let me pay the 24-year-olds to come from that college over to mine. Whereas BYU's had that formula for a long time. They get 18-year-olds and they come back at 20, and you got offensive linemen that are ready to play as freshmen. Yeah.
So you have 18-year-olds, they come back at 20, then they get a red shirt. You could have a red shirt year then, and then you have 4 years with them.
Exactly.
So it's like the Taysom Hill? No, who was like the like the 26-year-old quarterbacks?
There's so many of them. My son was at Marion playing football last fall, and he had a teammate that's 26, and he's got another year of eligibility. He's going to come back next year, I think, to Marion. He's going to be 27.
That's incredible.
But yeah, I mean, more power to him. I'd still be in college if they were paying me what they're paying kids nowadays.
Amen. Well, so you end up settling on Kansas as where you want to go to school. Take me through like the final, like I feel like everyone has that day. It's like, there's 3 hats on the table and you're deciding like where I'm going to take my talents, and you decide, being on the West Coast,
Yeah.
Being a beach guy that likes to bodyboard and boogie board and surf and play volleyball.
My prom date in high school was going to UCLA. Her dad loved me, and he was like, "Go to UCLA." He wanted me to come live with him. When I was kind of quote unquote homeless, and I was like, "I don't think that's a good idea." Being in the same house as a girl that I was, had a crush on. So I didn't live with them at all. But UCLA was hard after me, and I just didn't like their head coach. Arizona was really hard after me, and I was like, that's the next closest. Like San Diego State wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm too good for that. I need to go somewhere big time. And UCLA, I really, really wanted to go to UCLA, but they took me to a party on my trip, and I was like, no, you messed up. like
they didn't
this
know,
isn't my scene. Yeah.
They didn't know, like,
I don't drink. At this point, I don't drink. I don't smoke weed. And they took me to a party where all that was happening. And I was just like, I'm not trying to hook up with anybody here. I don't know anybody here. I'm not trying to do this. So they just missed the boat on that. But also, I just didn't like the head coach.
Yeah.
I didn't want to listen to that guy. Took my trip to Arizona. One of my high school, he wasn't a teammate of mine in high school, but he was from my high school. He was my host in Arizona. They took me to a party, and I was like, oh, this is my scene. There was a lot of tall girls with long black hair.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm coming here. I love Lute Olson. He was the coach then. Great man. And went over to his house, and his wife made breakfast, which is kind of a common thing back then. And I told him, I'm coming here, Lute. Thank you. Like, this is it. I'm here. Because I loved the way he coached. I loved his personality. He was like a father figure, and I needed that in my life at this point. I'm 16, 17 years old at this point, and I need this. And so I committed verbally. I was like, I'm coming to Arizona. And I was closest to home, and I was like, yes, 5-hour drive. I can get on the I-8 and get from San Diego to Arizona and live in Tucson and be good. And then I took my trip to Kansas. And Roy was my favorite the whole time, but it was Kansas. I didn't want to go that far away. I didn't know where Kansas was. I didn't know where Lawrence. I didn't know anything about the Jayhawks. I didn't know anything about the crimson and blue and how the colors are from Harvard and Yale and how Lawrence was founded and the territory of Kansas was founded as a free state to block the spread of slavery westward. I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I learned this all in Kansas and then post years, But I didn't care about any of that either. But being in San Diego, basketball is not a huge sport because everybody's outside. It's pleasant. It's room temperature year round in San Diego. So nobody goes inside to watch basketball. Everybody's like outside. If there's beach volleyball going on, they're going to watch that, not basketball, even if the team's really good. They took me out for late night, which back then it was the first practice of the year. Everybody does midnight madness or whatever. It was actually at midnight. And I'd never heard of this thing before. I'd never seen anything like this before. I walk in, there's 17,000 people there at midnight. And it's just loud. I've never seen 17,000 people in a building before because, again, San Diego, nobody's inside. I've never seen this many people in one place, and it's midnight. And it's for a practice. And all of a sudden, hundreds of people start chanting my name. Not thousands, but hundreds of people knew who I was because they bring the recruits in to impress them. It worked.
No way. You walk out there and they're like, oh yeah, there's that.
And they're
there's
like,
that
Scot Pollard. And then they chant the next guy's name, and so
I'd be like, where do I
that.
sign right now?
Yeah.
Like,
and so Coach Williams, whether this is true or not, he told me he wasn't eating dessert because he's a dessert guy until I decided where I was going to school. And I had one of the ball boys because I didn't have any money. I was like, hey, man, can you go get a German chocolate cake? Because that's Roy Williams' favorite dessert. And he went and got him. And I was like, here, Coach. He goes, well, I can't eat this until you decide. I said, well, that's what this means, Coach. I'm coming here.
And you give him dessert.
And
he's
he
like,
ate the whole cake.
Okay, now here's a question. Was it a hard conversation with
Lute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I called Lute. I said, Lute, I'm so sorry. I feel like Kansas is a better fit for me. And he just said, I certainly understand. We're going to miss you. Good luck to you. I mean, he was very classy about it. That's Lute, I think he wanted me really bad because they needed a big.
Well, I think that takes a lot of you think about being a high school senior and to pick up the phone and call the guy that you did to say that you wanted to come there until you actually got brought into your horizons a little bit. I think to pick up the phone, building relationships like that is important. And the way you go about whatever it is, especially today, you think of the transfer portal and people are in, people are out, people are saying I'm doing this and I'm getting paid $1 million here. What can you do for me? And I don't know, just committing to go somewhere and then having to call back your previous, coach and say, hey, this is what's going on. Wish you the best. They wish you the best. I think that's a hard conversation to have as a senior.
It was. And I was actually a junior when that happened.
Oh yeah.
It was, I just lost my dad and I'm trying to make all these major decisions and I'm deciding if I even want to play basketball because I'm so heartbroken.
How were you getting to these places?
They fly you out.
So
It was official
was it
visits.
just you, or like did you have someone go with you?
Just me. My mom was on crutches and stuff, and I was just like, Mom, I'm going alone. I was my mom and I. There was some tension between us at this time.
And is that
I was
common?
like, I'm going out.
Like if you thought of like the other top, college recruits across the country, are their parents or they probably have someone going with them on these trips.
So I just took my son through the transfer portal
Yeah.
just in January of this year, and every single player we went with, like there were juniors and seniors, and they all had a parent with them. And we were with Ozzy because he's 18. He's just turned 18 in August, and he still should be a senior in high school, technically. He's got teammates at Carmel High that are older than him, and they're still at Carmel High. So, we felt like he didn't need us, but he wanted us there because he wanted to process it and bounce the ideas off of us. So we went with them I went with him to all the trips, and then the last one we went to, we were pretty sure he was going to commit. So we went with him. My wife went with him.
Wait, where did he transfer from?
He transferred from Marion to Hawaii.
I mean, what? How did you end up at Marion? And then,
so he was getting recruited by a lot of big schools, and then his third game of his senior year, he ruptured his ACL.
Oh,
and they were still after him. Like Power 4 schools, still calling, saying, "Hey, we don't care about the knee. We know that happens. You're going to be fine." One of the Colts surgeons did his knee at Forte. They were awesome. It just an incredible experience, and he worked his butt off. But even after the surgery, they were still interested, and then all of a sudden it was like, "Oh, we checked your overall GPA." And so he learned a quick lesson. And to credit him, though, for understanding that, but also the maturity of admitting it. But even more than that, I will give him that his sophomore year of high school, there were some very serious social problems going on in his life that weren't his doing, but we had to deal with it. There were very, very severe problems and a lot of things going around school about him that weren't true. And so he was very distracted his sophomore year. Junior year, his dad's in and out of the hospital and getting a heart transplant. So not really paying attention to his grades. We were in Vanderbilt one time. He came down to visit and he goes, "I'm not leaving." I was like, "Dude, you have a life. You're throwing in track and field. You're one of the state qualifiers. Get your butt back to Indiana. I'll be fine." And so sophomore and junior year, that was the bulk of his GPA. And his fall of his senior year, 3.4. Spring of his senior year, 3.1. Fall at Marion, 3.5.
It's like the opposite of senioritis.
Yeah.
Like middleitis.
But he got the message. He realized, oh man, I made a bad mistake thinking that, okay, these personal problems are a good enough reason not to pay attention. And so he's got it now. He's great. He's doing so well at school. They only get 1 week off for spring break, but he's going to leave for 2 because football's off for 2 weeks. So he's taking his finals early, and he's going to be home next week for 2 weeks almost.
Did he get time at Marion in the fall?
Oh yeah, a lot. He made second team all conference.
Yeah, I was going to say, that has to be a huge pickup for Marion. They're like, let's go. And it's like, I wish we could have but it's like going to Hawaii. That's Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah, and he needed it. He needed the snaps for his own self. Like again, he could have still gone Division I, but they probably would have sat him his freshman year and probably redshirted him, and he'd be in the same situation right now, not knowing if that knee was good. Yeah. And now he knows because he got snaps at Marion. And so it worked out well. He worked on his GPA, worked on his body, and a lot of teams want him. We went through it. And the transfer portal is nuts. He doesn't ever want to do it again. He's like, "I'm staying at Hawaii forever." I was like, "I love your loyalty, but we got to see, because if you do well, the dollars and cents matter. It's football. Your career might be over next week. He already knows this because he's done it. He's done that ACL."
That is like loyalty is so great and like such a great quality to have, but it's also a business.
Yeah. And he's a businessman now.
Yeah.
He's stacking money, and we're trying to make him get some investments. I got a financial advisor for him.
That's sick.
And so he's going to, we're trying to set him up to be wealthy before he's 25.
Amen. I love that. Well, so talk about your journey then. This is a different time period. You're at Kansas. You're at, Midnight Madness. Things are going wild. 17,000 people.
Yeah.
Then in the fall, after your senior year, you show up in Lawrence and you're like, where the heck in the world am I? Like, how do you start to build community and find home in Kansas?
I was just lucky that Jock Vaughn, who's from LA, Pasadena, he and I played in some all-star games together. And we didn't decide to go to Kansas as a package deal. but we kind of decided to go to Kansas as a package deal because we played well together, and I liked him and he liked me. So we ended up rooming together all 4 years. And Jock was not a lottery pick. He was a first round pick my same year in 1997. He was picked to be a lottery pick after our junior year, but he chose to come back and play his senior year. Fall of his senior year, he breaks his wrist and missed the first part of the season. And we're picked to win it all that year. And we were undefeated all the way through his injury and his rebound. And then towards the end of the season, I get hurt and we lose one game while I'm out. And then we go in the finals or the Sweet 16 and we lose to Arizona.
What, in the handshake line after the game, was there eyes? Was there?
Oh yeah, I was like, man, I should have come here, jokingly, because I knew I didn't, and he knew I shouldn't have. Like Kansas was the right place for me, but I jokingly was like, I should have come here, and he's like, ha, ha, ha. I was like,
how far did they end up making it?
They won it all. Yeah.
Sometimes it'd be
my
like
sophomore
that.
year. I think it was my sophomore year, 95. UCLA won it all. So I had the choice to go to 2 different colleges and maybe be an NCAA champion, but oh well. But again, the basketball culture is crazy in Kansas. I mean, similar to Indiana, you know. I don't want to hurt Hoosiers' feelings, but it's nothing like Indiana.
Oh, wow.
In fact, this is an Indiana story. Yeah. My freshman year, Jock and I are roommates, and I'm not starting because there's a senior at the 4 spot and there's Greg Ostertag at the 5 spot. And so I'm coming off the bench spelling these guys. And one of them was in foul trouble, so I played a lot in that game, and it was versus Indiana. Preseason game in Lawrence, Kansas. Place is nuts. And Damon Bailey is just giving us the business. He ended up with 33 points that night. And I bust somebody's face open, and they bleed all over me. They couldn't get the blood out of my jersey, so I'm wearing a backup jersey at the end of the game, number 54, not number 31. I'm wearing number 54 with no name on the back. Go out to set a screen for Jock. The play is set up for me to go set a screen for Jock, and he's going to drive and dish it to me or, make a move somehow. And I go and set the screen. He kind of blows it off, so I go set another one, and he uses it, but then he comes back over to the right side and pops a 3 at the buzzer. Now, I'm wide open underneath the basket. I'm like, give me the ball. And he just pops the 3. And so I turn around, I'd go to box out, and it just goes in. And it's game. We win against Indiana at home. That's not really the story about how crazy Kansas basketball is. It was nuts in there. Don't get me wrong. It was the loudest thing I'd ever heard in my life at this point. But we got back to our apartment, which is on the 4th floor of a building that you have to have a key code to get in or a key fob to get in. And we're on the 4th floor. Our door is decorated with different numbers and cards and balloons. It was like, Jock, you're the man. It just like our door is covered with like Scotch tape. Like people have taped messages to our door. And we looked at it. It was like, this isn't Southern California.
Yeah, that's sick. Like maybe,
that was welcome to Kansas basketball.
Maybe a couple like college, they leave their phone number like, hey, take me out on Friday.
Yeah, I think that happened a bunch.
Maybe a couple times.
Maybe
right?
once or twice.
When you thought about staying, your time as a college athlete, like it is different today. Mm-hmm. Was the thought like, okay, you pick your place and you stay there, like transferring's not a thing, like the financial incentives, like how were you thinking about it then versus how it goes today?
Well, there were no financial incentives. I mean, I'm on the video games, I'm watching, it's number 31 at Kansas with blonde sideburns and blonde hair, but no name. So it's not me. Yeah. I'm like, "Ugh," and I didn't get any money for that. So there were no financial incentives. But, like I said, my brothers all transferred. They all went to one school and ended up transferring to another school. So my decision was for Roy Williams because I made Roy promise me that he wasn't going to leave for North Carolina while I was there.
Oh.
And I said, Roy, because all my brothers transferred, I said, I'm trusting you with being the father that I need, the father figure that I need in my life right now, but you can't leave me. Because back then you couldn't transfer. You'd lose a year of eligibility or you had to sit out a year, which again, they don't have now. So I didn't want that to happen to me because that was what happened to my brothers and it spiraled their careers out of control. And so I didn't want that. I wanted to go one place and stay there. Leaving early wasn't a thought in my head because it didn't happen. Even Paul Pierce went 3 years, at Kansas. Yeah. So, Rafe LaFrentz went 4 years, lottery picks, both of them. And so it was just a different time.
Yeah.
And so I did not want to transfer, never thought about transferring. In fact, I made Coach Williams promise me that he wasn't going to leave so I wouldn't have to transfer. So I knew that was on my spot, and I didn't even start my first 2 years. I knew I wasn't going to start. He told me, he's like, I'm not going to promise you a starting spot. And after my freshman year, he said, look, you've earned a starting spot. a senior graduated that was at the 4 spot, but Rafe LaFrance was coming in. He goes, Rafe LaFrance, he's better than you. Roy told me that. And he goes, so he's going to start. But he goes, here's the thing. I got Greg Ostertag. He's going to be a senior, and the NBA's looking at him. And I only get something out of Greg Ostertag every other Tuesday. If I don't start him, I won't get anything out of him at all. And the kid has a chance to be an NBA player, and I'm not going to take that away from him. So what's going to happen is he's going to start every game, but you're going to average more minutes. And I did my sophomore year. I came off the bench, and whenever Rafe was tired, I went in and played. Whenever Greg was tired, I went in and played. So I ended up averaging more minutes than Greg Ostertag my sophomore year, but I came off the bench for 2 years.
You wind up, you're becoming a first-round pick, I think, 19th overall?
19th pick, yep.
Like, talk to me about, you said the mindset shifted sometime during your senior year that you could make a career out of this.
Well, like I said, I played with Greg Ostertag, who was an NBA talent. There was a lot of other players that were in my 4 years that were NBA players at some point, even if it was just a tryout for a while or 1 year. And I'm playing with Rafe LaFrance, who ended up being a lottery pick, and Paul Pierce, who was a lottery pick. Jock Vaughn, who was predicted to be a lottery pick after our junior year. So there were always college scouts there. They weren't there for me. And then partway through my senior year, I'm talking to Roy before a game, and he's like, yeah, there's a lot of scouts here tonight. I said, cool, good for Paul. And he goes, no, son, they're here for you. I was like, oh, that's new. And so that's when it really started becoming a thought that I was going to make it to the NBA, because it was always the goal, but I never had any feedback that it was actually going to possibly happen. And I was projected late first round, early second round. And then they invited me out on the workouts, and it was everybody in the 20s. There was 28 teams at the time. Chicago just beat Utah, and I told Utah, I'm not coming to work out for you. And the GM was like, wait, what? Jerry loves you. Jerry Sloan, the coach at the time, and he goes, Jerry loves you. We love you. You were born here. Your whole family's here. Like, why wouldn't you? And I said, that's exactly why. Because I know me. I could fill the stadium with family for 41 home games and still piss people off. I can't handle that in my personal life. I won't be able to focus on basketball. I'm going to have people pulling at me for tickets for every single home game my entire time. I was like, I'm sorry. You're right. I would love to play for Jerry Sloan, but I'm not coming to Utah. Sorry. So that was the only team in the 20s that I didn't work out for. But Detroit had the first pick of the second round, and that's why they were working me out. They also had the 19th pick. And every team I worked out for said they were taking me if I was available.
What does a workout look like for a team? Like, what are you doing?
I went in there, and there's other guys in your position, and you work out against them. You lift weights, you do some jumping exercises. They do check your vertical and your reach, your height, your weight, all that stuff. Just to make sure. And they give you a physical to make sure you're healthy. They check out your medical history, what bones have you broken, if you've ruptured anything, all that kind of stuff. And they checked my shoulder because I'd had shoulder surgery in college, and then you hoop. And I hooped.
And he hooped.
I had one guy quit. I was in Atlanta, and he ended up getting picked after me. But we were in Atlanta, and he just said, F this, I don't want to play in this city anyway. And he walked out of the workout.
No way.
Because I was just busting his ass.
Let's go. That's hype.
But
that's got to feel good.
Well, it did. And the proof, though, was that Detroit was scared that I wasn't going to be there in the second round. And I wasn't. So they picked me at 19 instead of
Where were you
30.
at on draft night?
Las Vegas. Because the draft, it was in New York, and they only they kind of invited you, but it wasn't really like on national TV. It wasn't the spectacle that it is now. It was a spectacle for the in person, but it wasn't like on national TV or anything. It was just like, hey, if you got the right channel, you could watch it. And I was again predicted to be early second round. I'm like, I'm not gonna go sit there and wait for an hour and a half and maybe hear my name. I'll just be in Vegas, and we're watching in the sports book because that's the only place we could get it on TV. And so we're in a sports book. There's TVs everywhere, but there's one little one in front of us that's showing the draft. And so we're just watching that one, and all of a sudden they start, because I'm like, why hasn't Jock been picked? Jock was supposed to be a lottery pick after our junior year. I'm like, I'm getting in a fight with who I was with.
Is he with you or no?
He's not with me, no.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, why hasn't he been picked? And they start showing Kansas clips. And I was like, finally, good job, Detroit. And then they keep showing me, and I'm like, because there's no sound. And so I'm like, and then my phone rings, and I'm like one of the old brick, like Motorola, you're like, pull the antenna up. I'm like, hello. And they're like, this is the secretary for the GM of the Detroit Pistons. We just picked you in the first round, 19th pick. I was like, oh, that's what that was. So that's how I found out. I had no idea that I was going that high. And all of a sudden the staff comes over. You can't have a phone in the sports book. So they were like, you got to get out of here now. And I'm on the phone. They're like, we need to fly you out. We got a press conference. I'm like, hold on. I'm getting kicked out of the sports book right now. And so that was my draft day experience.
And the staff of the sports book's not like, hey, you just got drafted in the NBA. They're like, don't care. Get out of here.
No, they didn't. I was like, that's me. Like literally I'm talking, that's me. And they're like, get out now. I was like, okay. So yeah,
you go out and
they flew me to Detroit the next day. I was on a flight the next morning from Vegas and did a press conference. And then my agent started working deals for me. I got a free car through a Toyota dealership. I got a 4Runner and I had a car already. I was in so much debt. That was the crazy part. I was in so much debt because you don't get your first pay. I didn't get my first paycheck till November 15th. I had to get a place to live. I had to get a car. I didn't have an income. I didn't have a job, and so I didn't have any money, and my agent is just fronting some of this stuff, and I got loans for the rest of it because I didn't want my agent paying for anything. I wanted to make sure that it was me paying for it. I had to get an insurance policy from Lloyd's of London for Summer League, which cost me about $60,000 to cover my entire rookie contract in case I got hurt playing Summer League because they wouldn't sign me yet. Like the process was at that point. I don't know if it's changed, but I didn't sign until after Summer League, like August, with the Pistons. So technically I'm just unrestricted, like I'm just a free agent, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I had to get an insurance policy against my rookie contract, and it cost me like $50,000-$60,000 that I didn't have. And so I was in debt like $100,000 before I got my first paycheck. And I was freaking out. I was just like, I don't even know how many zeros that is. I had no money.
You're in debt $50,000?
100.
100?
I leased a car, and then I got the free Toyota. But I mean, I had to get a house. I was leasing a house in Birmingham.
Obviously, you're hoping though you don't get hurt in Summer League. You make it there, and you think like you're going to be rich and wealthy in the whole 9 yards. But it is. It's not just like you get drafted and all of a sudden they give you a giant check for $10 million.
Yeah, and maybe they do now, but back then they didn't.
Wow.
So yeah, that was the beginning of my rookie year. And
you only spent 1 year in Detroit.
Yeah. So Charles O'Bannon, who went to UCLA, and we were friends, he got picked with that pick in the first pick of the second round. And so we were teammates, and we got along really well. He's really the only reason I wanted to go to UCLA because I really like Charles O'Bannon, the whole O'Bannon family. And by the way, if you're mad at NIL, blame Ed O'Bannon, Charles' older brother, because he's the one that started all of this. He sued the NCAA.
About the video game?
Mm-hmm. And that's what started all of it. Ed O'Bannon is the father of NIL. And I'm glad. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for all the kids that are getting paid now. I know it's crazy, and I know it doesn't make any sense. And like I said, I've been through it with my son and the transfer portal. It's the Wild West. There's no rules. People say, oh, yeah, we're following the rules. Everyone's offer was different. Nothing is uniform. There's no guarantees. There's no contracts that are guaranteed. There's no union. It is the Wild, Wild West. So good luck if you're going to go to the transfer portal. And that's why my son is like, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
I'm staying in Hawaii. And it's not even just that it's Hawaii. It's just that he loves the coaching staff. That's why he went there. He didn't care about the money. He didn't care about anything. He got offered money in other places.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I love this coaching staff. I want to run through a brick wall.
And I mean, like, you had to spend 4 years in Hawaii. Like, not a bad college experience. Yeah. Aloha, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so then with what was his name? O'Bannon coming from in the second round, first pick of the second round.
Yeah, he's from LA. So we knew each other from All-Star games in LA. His team actually knocked my team out of the state playoffs in our junior year of high school. He went to Artesia, and they came down because we were the higher seed. They came to our place and they knocked us out. And I was just like, I hate you, Charles. I love you, but I hate you.
Yeah. And so why did it only end up being 1 year in Detroit?
Doug Collins was the coach.
Yeah.
And Doug couldn't yell at the older guys. It was Grant Hill. It was two of the bad boys. It was still Joe Dumars and Rick Mahorn. That's how old I am. Grant Long. And, these guys that were grizzled veterans. And Grant Hill. He's not yelling at them.
Yeah.
So he's yelling at the white guy. I was the only white guy on the team. And he's yelling at me, and he's yelling at, because I'm a rookie. He's like, you want to be crazy with the painted nails? I'm like, I don't paint my nails anymore. I never painted my nails in the NBA, contrary to popular opinion of people that tell me how my nails looked. So he and I rubbed each other the wrong way. He got fired halfway through the year, and Alvin Gentry, the official associate interim head coach of the NBA for that decade and the next decade, he took over, and he was a Jayhawk. He coached with Larry Brown at Kansas. So he was like, hey, Jayhawk, I was there. And I didn't know that, but he was there before I was at Kansas as an assistant. And he loved me, but, I needed to get faster, and it wasn't physically. It was the pace of the game of the NBA was different. I was used to read, react, and see where you need to be and go get there. And that's how I learned how to play basketball. And that's what we did at Kansas. There was plays, there were sets, but we read and reacted to each other. And in the NBA, we had to run all these plays, and it was just like, fist down 4X, 3-9-5, 45-2. We're going to shoot with 3 seconds left on the clock. It's the Eastern Conference in the 90s. We're going to score 80 points. It's going to be boring as hell, but we're going to guard the other team. Like, great, thank you. This is a blast. Where I'm used to scoring 95 points a game in college, now we're in the NBA, and it's like 80. I'm like, ugh, this is brutal. And I don't remember plays because, again, I'm a read and react guy. And so it didn't go well for me in Detroit, and then there was a lockout.
Oh, yeah.
After my rookie year. So nothing happened. And then they said, hey, it was like January or so. They were like, hey, come back in town. It looks like it's going to get settled. So I went back up there, and we were working out, allowed to go in the building and stuff. And then one day I go in to work out, and Lindsey Hunter looks at me and goes, hey, man, what the F are you doing here? And I was like, haha, what are you doing here? And he's like, no, I was in the paper this morning. You got traded.
No way.
I go over to the GM's office. They made me wait an hour. And then he finally let me in. Rick's son let me in. Finally, he goes, hey, man, that purported guest. I'm like, guest? And it happened? Like, come on. You could have given me a warning. I'm here. I could have broken the lease on my house last year. And now I've got another year lease on it. And you're trading me. He traded me. So I got traded for Christian Laettner to Atlanta. And again, lockout year. This is like February. I go to Atlanta. They give me a physical. They give me a flu shot. I got so sick, they cut me. Like, I never played for the Atlanta Hawks. I had 2 years left of my guaranteed contract. The rest of the lockout year and the following year, Atlanta paid me while I was playing for the Sacramento Kings.
No way.
Yeah.
Because of a flu shot?
Yeah, I got really sick. I could not leave the hotel room. It was just coming out everywhere.
Gosh.
It was brutal.
All right, so then you end up getting picked up by the Kings?
I got picked up by the Kings. So the deal was, back then there was no reserve list, and the Atlanta GM, Pete Babcock, awesome dude, just an awesome dude. Much respect for him, but he was just like, look, we don't keep reserve players. And at the time, it was, you had to be on an injured reserve. So you had to fake an injury if you were on the injured reserve roster, so you could stay getting paid, but also sometimes travel with the team, or not travel, but at least be on the roster. Well, they wanted to challenge that rule and just make it a reserve list, which is what it is now. And so he was like, we want you to just be on the reserve list without an injury, or we can cut you. And so I was like, hold on. I went out and called my agent. He goes, tell him to give you some time. So I went in and I was like, Pete, my agent wants to call some teams. About an hour later, he called me. He said, there's 4 teams that want you right now. They'll fly you out today or tomorrow. I said, pick one. Because at this point, it's my second team in a year and a half, and I'm going, I don't know if I belong in the NBA. Like this, I get here, and Lenny Wilkins doesn't even know my name. He's the head coach of the team. He's like, you guard Dikembe. So I didn't think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And so he was like, I think Sacramento's a good fit for you. They're putting a team together, and there's talent, and nobody's roster spot is set. You have a chance to play. So I flew from Atlanta to Philadelphia the next day, took a physical there. They didn't give me a flu shot. And I was in a jersey that night for the Kings and played for the Sacramento Kings that night. And the rest, as they say, is history. I played there for 5 seasons.
They fly you to Philly and say, suit up, kid, you're going in?
Yep. They had a jersey with my number and name on it already. They did it in Philly.
You're like, in the pregame, you're like, okay, and your name is?
Yeah.
And your name?
I'm like, I don't know anybody on the team. I mean, I'd heard of Vlade Divac. I'd heard of Chris Webber, but I didn't know who Jason Williams was, Peja Stojakovic, Corliss Williamson. I knew from college because he was a legend at Arkansas.
Yeah.
But I'd heard of some of the guys, but I didn't know anybody.
So then you end up spending 5 seasons with Sacramento.
Yep.
Like, how was your time there? Like,
we made the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
We were the first Kings team in history to make it past the first round. Then we went to the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers, and a lot of people would say Game 6 of that Western Conference Finals was the officially most obviously rigged game in the history of the NBA. Vlade, Chris, and I fouled out. Shaq had 2 fouls and I think he shot 14 free throws in the fourth quarter. I think they shot 20-something as a team in the fourth quarter. Now, I'm not saying it's rigged, okay? I'm just saying it's notorious. Like, Ralph Nader wrote a letter to the NBA. That's how obvious that a lot of people thought that it was rigged. Because we were the best team in the league. We had the best record in the league. We had home court advantage. And I ended up playing with Brian Scalabrine, who was on the Nets at this time, and the Nets had won the East already. They're waiting for who's going to win this series. And he said, until game 4, when we were teammates at the Celtics years later, he goes, until game 4, we weren't even scouting the Lakers. We knew you guys were going to win.
This is crazy. AI, if you Google it.
Yeah, Google it.
You Google it, and they say the 2002 Western Conference Finals Game 6 between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Sacramento Kings is widely considered the most controversial and allegedly rigged game in NBA history. Questionable officiating included a lopsided 40-25 free throw advantage for the Lakers, fueled allegations of manipulation. Yeah, the Lakers shot 27 free throws in the fourth quarter alone, aiding a comeback to the King against the Kings.
Yep. And then
that's AI. That's crazy.
It's widely known. I know younger generations haven't heard of it because it's 2002. Like you were probably like 4 years old at this point, or maybe not even born.
I was 5. Yeah, there we
go. So it is old, but and I don't say anything like that. Like I'm not saying it's rigged. I'm just saying there's a whole lot of information that it might be. My take on it has always been that's why you get home court advantage. That's why you earn home court advantage, and we had it. And we went home in game 7 and we crapped the bed.
Yeah.
We should have beat it. But the problem is we let superstars be superstars. We let Kobe and Shaq be superstars, and it came out of them in game 7.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anything for them then.
Yeah.
So that's why we lost. And so fast forward, because I know where you're going. That summer, I am happily a Sacramento King planning. I have 3 years left on my contract with them. And, we got this Western Conference. I don't know. Sorry. One more year with the Kings. Then after 22-23 season, we get to the Western Conference, maybe second round.
Yeah.
Still happy to be a Sacramento King, and I'm in Kansas as I always was in my off season, and playing cards with my friends in the basement, and they're like, "Hey, turn the TV on." So turn the TV on the ticker below. It was like 3-team deal. Sacramento Kings trade Scot Pollard for Brad Miller, and I'm like, "Wait, what?"
And these are conversations that you're given heads up on?
No, not at all. I had no idea for Detroit. Going to Atlanta, and I had no idea.
Are they calling your agent or anything, or no?
My agent said, I called him. I was like, "Jeff, what the?" And he's like, "I had no idea. They didn't tell me."
And so that's what plants you in Indiana.
Yeah, Brad Miller wanted $60 million for 6 years, and I was getting paid half that. So Sacramento was like, "We're going to upgrade to Brad Miller," and the Pacers were like, "We're going to save money and get Scot Pollard for Brad Miller at half the price." And it was a 3-team deal. I mean, Hito Turkoglu went from Sacramento to San Antonio. Ron Mercer went from Pacers to San Antonio. And Danny Ferry went from San Antonio to Indiana. They cut him, and he became the assistant GM at San Antonio.
I mean, this is now you're venturing east of the Mississippi.
Yeah, and I'm livid. I don't want to play. My rookie year in the Eastern Conference, I was like, man, this is not basketball. This is memorize playbooks, walk up the court, guard people. Like, I'm a great defender, but this boring basketball. I like to run. I'm a run, read, react, tip dunk, go set screens, get guys open. I can shoot threes. The problem is, in my era, I was way better than, say, I don't know, Reggie Miller at setting screens and rebounding. And he was better at shooting threes. I think anybody could agree with that.
Yeah.
So, unlike today's era where it's like, oh, you're 7'4", why don't you shoot some threes? No, get your ass in the post and do what you're really good at. Be great at one thing. Don't try to be marginal at everything. And that's what I hate about the game today. But that's a different story. So I'm, livid that I'm going back to the Eastern Conference. And that's exactly what it was. Rick Carlisle, I love Rick Carlisle, but this wasn't current Rick Carlisle. This was 1999, 2000, 2003 Carlisle.
This is 03-04, your first season with the Pacers.
And he had just left Detroit, got fired by Detroit, and took credit for assembling that team that ended up knocking us out and winning the national or the NBA championship. So he was livid about that. But I love Rick Carlisle, but we're going to grind it out. Playbook is 3 inches thick. Memorize the plays. We're going to get the ball into Jermaine O'Neal. We're going to average 82 points. They're going to score 78. We're going to grind it out. So, nowadays they're scoring 120 points a game. I would have loved playing for this version of Rick Carlisle because this is my brand.
You show up there. This is at the end of Reggie's career, right?
It was his last 2 years were my first 2 years here. Wow. And it was a pleasure playing with Reggie. We hit it off. We became good friends, and he invited me to his retirement party, so I was honored to be a part of that.
What did you think about the city of Indianapolis, coming from Kansas and the West Coast?
In the NBA at the time, there was no better crowd than Sacramento. The It was incredible. And everywhere we went, because we had European guys, we had a Turkish guy, we had Serbian guys. We'd go to Chicago, and Chicago wasn't good at this point, but we'd go to Chicago and it'd be mostly our fans, because if you didn't know, Chicago has the largest population of Serbians outside of Serbia. So they filled it up for Vlade and Peja. Vlade, one year while we were teammates, the war was going on, Yugoslavia was breaking up and all that stuff. And he got 20% of the write-in vote for president of Serbia. And he wasn't running.
No way.
He's kind of a big deal.
That's sick.
And I can go on about stories about him, but we'd go to New Jersey, and apparently there's a lot of Turkish people in New Jersey, and we had Turkish Michael Jordan, Hito Turkoglu on our team. Back then it was the Meadowlands, so it was like 4 stories, I'm pretty sure, because it played football in there too. And the whole upper deck would be all Turkish flags for Hito. I mean, we had a play called TMJ, and it was Turkish Michael Jordan. It was Hito's play.
That's hype.
So anyway, that was what I was used to as a Sacramento King. Kansas, we traveled well everywhere we went in the Big 10 or Big 8 back then, and then now it's the Big 12. It was a home court advantage. Like Colorado was a home court for us, because anybody in Western Kansas that couldn't get tickets to the game would go to the Colorado game, and Colorado didn't do well, so they would sell the tickets to whoever, and we'd have a home court advantage. Sacramento was a lot like that. We'd go to some of the Eastern teams that weren't very good, and we beat them up because we had a bunch of fans, Sacramento fans, because we appealed to so many. Our play was fun. We played like they do today, except everybody had a position. The ball moved around so much, and everybody stayed in their position, but the ball moved and everybody scored. You didn't know who was going to beat you.
Yeah.
And the superstars didn't care about points at this point. Some of them were, they'd go in and out of that. Like, I need more money. I need more touches, all that. But for the most part, it was very unselfish basketball. And so we appealed to people that weren't even fans because of the Serbians or the Turkish guys or Chris Webber or whatever. But we had White Chocolate. I mean, that guy was a joy to play with and watch play basketball. And then Mike Bibby, who, again, was on the team at Arizona that beat me my senior year. So I was like, Mike, I might murder you. But no, great teammate. And he hit big shots for us, man. He was great. So I'm used to all of this. Yeah. And then I get to Indiana, and the loudest I heard the crowd my first year here, and we were good. We went to the Eastern Conference Finals that year, 03-04. And the loudest I heard the building was one time when Peyton Manning walked in. I was like, oh, this is a Colts town. Got it. Yeah. I don't mean to piss people off, but
no, but it
is. I mean, it's a Colts town. When the Colts are good, they care a lot more than when the Pacers are good. And that's fine. That's just the way it is here. I think Kansas City is the same way. Now, they got a good Royals team that's won a World Series, but yet they don't care as much as when the Chiefs are good.
Yeah. Now, what about this past year? I felt like the city, that place was rocking.
Yeah, but the Colts suck. It's kind of, so it's like, okay, well, this team's good. Yeah. So that's also natural. It's not front running. It is kind of front running, but it's not, because, hey, the football team's not that good. So let's rally around the basketball team. And now, are they selling out every game? No, they're not. They're terrible because they've, of everything and everybody knows. But it was great to see. We got to go to a couple of the games. They invited us to a few of the games, so I got to go to some of them. And my son Ozzy, he's a big dude, he was really excited to meet Ron Artest at one of the games, because he was like, that guy's nuts. I was like, yes, he is. Literally, he's been diagnosed. But Ronnie's such a great dude. I love him. Off the court. Teammates, not so much, but off the court, Ron is just an awesome human being. I love him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this past year, I felt like it was some of the loudest environments I had been into. I think it was game 6 at home, when I think we ended up running them out of the gym. It was crazy. Yeah. Just like the whole thing was wild. Here in Indiana, chances are you've heard the name Keller & Keller, and there's a reason so many Hoosiers trust them when something goes wrong. Keller & Keller is a local personal injury law firm that's been helping people across Indiana for over 90 years, and they've built their reputation on one simple thing: showing up for Hoosiers when they need it most. You talk to real humans, you get real answers, and they're available 24/7 by phone or live chat, so you're never stuck wondering what to do next. Whether it's a car accident, a truck crash, or an injury that's turned your life upside down, Keller & Keller knows how to deal with insurance companies and fight for what's fair, so you get to focus on your recovery. If you or someone you love has been hurt, don't fight alone. Call Keller & Keller or chat anytime at 2keller.com. That's the number 2keller.com. Keller & Keller, right here for Indiana when it matters most. Now let's get back into the episode. We, preface it in the beginning. You talk about the eventual condition that ended up taking your dad.
Yeah.
What is this condition?
There's no diagnosis name for it. It is a genetic anomaly. You know, when you go to the doctor, anybody, and they say you're an interesting case, that's pretty much the worst thing you can hear.
You do not want to hear that. No.
That means they don't know what to do or what you have. And so I heard that several times. But it all started, I got my heart checked every year because of my dad, you know, and I have 2 older siblings in heart failure. One of my brothers and my sister, and both of theirs started with cancer. My brother had thyroid cancer, my sister had breast cancer, and the drugs caused her heart. She was first. Caused her heart to go crazy. But a pacemaker is keeping her stable. My brother, he's getting worse, but he's still just pacemaker and drugs, and so he's probably going to be closer to a transplant in the next year or so. But I got my heart checked in January of 21. Everything was great. And they were like, you're going to live forever. I was like, awesome. But you should probably get a COVID shot. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And now listen, everybody, I want you to understand. I'm telling my story. I'm not telling you what to do. Okay. Do whatever you want to do. But this is my story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I said no. And they said, well, you should at least get a flu shot. So I told them the flu shot story from Atlanta. I was like, flu shots don't agree with me. I got so sick, they cut me. I'm not doing that. And they're like, well, it'll protect you if you get COVID.
A flu shot made me unemployed.
Yeah. Like I got fired for getting so sick from a flu shot. I was like, I don't really want to do that. And they're like, well, it'll protect you if you get the COVID. We don't know about this thing. This is January of 21, right? So I get the flu shot. 3 days later, I can't walk across the room. I am passing out. I'm breathing hard all the time. And I go to the urgent clinic because I'm not going to the hospital. This is probably just a weird flu. Maybe I got the COVID. And I didn't. I got a flu, but it wasn't that because they wanted it to be that. They tested me about 15 times. And they said, you've got a flu, but you need to go to the hospital. And I was like, why? I'll just go home. Who goes to the hospital for flu? And he's like, your heart's beating 10,000 extra beats a day. So the flu virus, whatever it was, attacked my heart and released that genetic anomaly. And that's how my dad started. My dad had a virus, and it was for him, he kept getting pneumonia, but the virus had started years earlier, and it was a slower progression for him than it was for me. But that virus just released it, and immediately I'm in heart failure. And, it wouldn't be fair to not say the rest of this about shots. Again, my story. They were like, now you need to get a COVID shot because if you get COVID, you're going to die. And, being threatened with death while you're having a hard time breathing, just sitting down, kind of throws you a little bit. So I got the first one, and I had my first ablation, which is where they put a wire in your groin and they feed it up to your heart and they burn the piece of heart. So my issue was, when you have problems with your heart, usually it's plumbing or electrical. Your pipes are clogged or you have AFib, electrical short circuits. Yeah. I had short circuits. They called them PVCs. And no, my plumbing was perfect. But my heart was short circuiting and beating all kinds of weird ways, PVCs, 10,000 extra beats a day. Yeah. And so I've got an ablation scheduled for them to go in with a wire and burn the piece of heart that's causing the short circuit. And hopefully that solves everything and I'm fine. And I get the second shot about 3 or 4 days before my ablation at the University of Chicago. And by the time I get to the University of Chicago hospital for my ablation, I'm like, it hurts to breathe. Like I can't lay flat. I can't sit up. Every time I move, my chest hurts really bad. I think I'm having a heart attack or something's going on here. And so they did a scan and they were like, oh, you have myocarditis and pericarditis. You're going to the ICU. And I went to the ICU for 4 days, IV steroids, and almost died. Oh my God. So there will be no more shots going into my body.
Yeah. And I mean, again, your story, your
it's
experience,
just, that's
and
how
everyone's body reacts, different. It's not like this is a new thing. Like this was something that happened back in
21.
And when you were
1999.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just doesn't react well, with that. And I want to preface, Google, the average heart beats 100,000 times per day, roughly. Yeah. So this is a 10% increase. You're beating,
It was like I was running uphill every day.
Yeah.
I'm sitting down sweating. And I couldn't talk. I was oxygen wasn't going to my brain.
Going into the ICU, are you still coherent?
Yeah. I don't recall a lot about it. I just remember being very disappointed because I couldn't get the ablation because my heart was on fire and you can't go in there and shock it with burn it because it's already on fire. And the pericarditis pericardium is the little sac that's in your heart's in it. And so when that's inflamed, it's squeezing your heart. And plus my heart is inflamed. So that's why it hurt. That's why it hurt to breathe and it hurt to lay flat. And so they have to get that inflammation down because it can be fatal.
You spend 4 days in the ICU and then it ends up kind of subsiding a little bit?
The steroids got the inflammation under control, but they said you still have to like let this completely subside. So they couldn't do the ablation then. They had to schedule it for like 2 months later.
Okay. So you're just living...
Just back on the couch.
Yeah. Just tired?
All the time. Yeah.
Ran out of energy?
Yep. No oxygen going to my brain. Couldn't form a thought. Had to stop doing public appearances. Couldn't do podcasts. Couldn't do radio interviews. No emceeing. Just telling people no. Didn't go public with it. Just told people, I just can't. I'm, busy or whatever. I was lying to a lot of people, because I was used to doing gigs, public speaking, going to speak at corporate headquarters or whatever, this and that. Pacers appearances, going doing basketball camps for the Pacers and little charity things around the town. And, I would rest up and do some of them, but not speaking. Some of them like Zubilation, we would try to go because my wife and I always go to Zubilation. We've been a part of that on committees before. So we try to make that one. But I was one of them. I remember just like after about a half hour, 45 minutes, I was like, I got to go. I couldn't talk, couldn't stand there anymore. I was just like, we got to go. I'm like, just like falling asleep, standing up. Like, we have to leave. And so it was fast, but it was also like slow because I didn't really think about saying no to so many people for 3 years. And then finally, January of 23, I was accused of faking it. And so that's when I decided to go public. And I went on my social medias and I was just like, hey, just want everybody to know the reason I'm not out there and in public anymore is because I'm in heart failure and things aren't going well. And that's actually when ESPN reached out.
Wait, you were accused of faking this?
Heart failure, yeah. I know.
So then you go public.
Yeah.
And like, what did the process of what you were going through look like? What was going on?
Well, I'm trying not to die. My wife's wearing all the hats. She's doing all the parenting. She's getting the kids where they need to go.
Are you going to the hospital frequently?
I'm in and out, depending on, but really there's nothing they can do. It's just degenerating. And I ended up having 3 ablations at the University of Chicago. And the 3rd ablation was January of 23. In fact, I'm wrong on that. I didn't go public till January of 24, I think. Because it was like January of 24, December, somewhere in there. But January of 23, I had my 3rd ablation, and my wife told me the story because the doctor came in and talked to her. I was still unconscious, but he came in. It was 8 hours, and he said, I've never put that much heat in anybody's heart before. And he goes, I'm done. Like every time I kill one, another one pops up. He said it's whack-a-mole in there, and he goes, I won't do any more ablations on him. I'll kill him. So that's when that closed the door on that procedure. And he was the best. That's why I kept going to the University of Chicago. Is like I've been fortunate to have friends in different fields of life. I keep in touch with people. I'm connect with people every city I played in and played for. I friends with doctors and lawyers and stuff. I don't like being friends with lawyers. They know this. And so they recommended this guy in Chicago.
And then how does it end up coming to the point where you have to have a transplant?
So later that year, 23, September of 23, they've tried every drug. They tried one drug that they didn't tell me until afterwards that the first side effect is death. One of the drugs I got came in a glass bottle. CVS had to wait 2 weeks to get it in because they're like, we don't carry this drug. And it came in a glass bottle. They're like, don't touch it with your hands.
What?
I was like, I'm supposed to put this in my mouth, but don't touch it with my hands. They're like, if you do it quick and wash your hands immediately. I was like, all right. So I put it in a piece of paper. I poured it out on a piece of paper and I grabbed the piece of paper and put it in my mouth and then I washed my hands anyway. But that one didn't work either. But they were, they were trying drugs that they said, one of them, I remember they said they stopped giving it to people with PVCs in the 70s because they had a high incidence of death. But they were trying anything and none of it worked. The ablations didn't work. So September of 23, they were like, we need to start talking about transplant. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to die like my dad because my donor has to be 7 feet tall, right? And they said, no, technology's gotten better. We just need a guy that's 6'3". I'm like, oh, that makes me feel a whole lot better because there's 10% of all humans are above 6'3". So it didn't really give me a whole lot of hope of finding, even a donor at 6'3". So that's when we started talking about it. And I was like, nah, I'm just going to live. And I'm going to try not to get teary-eyed when I tell this story because my wife loves me very much. And I said, no, I'm not doing a transplant. I don't want to do it. I'm so tired. I was sick and my brain wasn't working and I was just so tired. I didn't want any more drugs. I didn't want more side effects. I didn't want any more procedures. I was like, I don't want to do this. I just want to let it go. I'm just going to go. And she goes, this isn't about you. This is about me and your kids. And that was the verbal slap in the face I needed because I was being selfish. Like, I grew up angry because my dad died at 16 and I had a 16-year-old at this point. And I'm going to just not try to stay alive for him and our younger one, my older kids too. But, they're out of the house already. And I've got a 16-year-old and at the time a 16-year-old and at the time a 7-year-old. And I'm just going to fade out. And so that was when I got listed at St. Vincent's. It was because my wife was like, you're not going to quit. She loves me a lot.
Yeah.
Because I have life insurance. She could have just
yeah, right.
She could have just taken that and moved back to Colorado. She didn't need all this, but no, she talked me into it.
What does the process of getting on the heart transplant list look like? One, do you have to get referred in from a previous doctor saying hey, this is a relatively healthy individual that it would be a good candidate for donation or transplant?
That doesn't happen that way. Exactly. Yeah. You have to get tested, and not just physical tests. They test your sociological framework. Do you have a circle? Can someone take care of you? You have to sign up a caregiver that's willing and able to drop everything and be with you in the hospital and get you to every appointment before and after. Vanderbilt required 2 of those.
Who's your second one?
My second one was Brent Joseph, who's a friend of mine that we graduated college together at Kansas.
So you had a buddy. You had a buddy that
he signed up to be my second. Yeah, to be my second.
That's
Vanderbilt.
pretty special.
But at St. Vincent's, they needed one. And they do psychological counseling. They do sociological counseling. They checked on my wife. They checked my substance abuse history because they're not going to give an organ to somebody. People sometimes need a liver and they're not going to give one to an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
And if you smoke weed, you're immediately disqualified from Vanderbilt and not everybody's like that, but Vanderbilt's like that. And it's because THC directly negatively impacts your anti-rejection drugs. So I can't, not that I want to smoke weed. I've done it and it wasn't my thing. But,
yeah.
They're like, don't ever smoke weed because it makes your anti-rejection drugs not work.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, that's easy.
Don't smoke weed like your life depends on it.
Yeah. No, I'm good. But anyway, so I gave 17 vials of blood for St. Vincent's. I gave 23 for University of Chicago. And I gave 33 for Vanderbilt. And the reason why I got listed at 3 different places in 3 different regions is because getting listed at 2 different hospitals in Indiana, you're still going for the same organs. It's the same donor pool. And so it doesn't do you any good. But luckily I had a connection at the University of Chicago because that's where I got my ablations. So I went up there and I got listed there. St. Vincent's listed me as status 4, which is the highest level you can be without an external heart pump called an LVAD, which I was not a candidate for, without any other, being sick enough.
Yeah.
So I was listed status 4, which means hopefully they get a heart, and they call me and it's too big for anybody else. And they call me and I go in and get a heart transplant. So we're sitting there thinking it's if you're a father or mother and you're like, oh, when our water breaks, we'll have a bag packed for the hospital and we'll just go. That's kind of what we were thinking it was going to be like. And, we had plans to go to the University of Chicago and we went up there and we had already made plans to go to Vanderbilt the next week. And so we go up to the University of Chicago and it's about a month after being listed here and going through the process here, did the same thing over again for the University of Chicago. And then St. Vincent sent their data up. And as we're leaving the University of Chicago to come back home, the cardiologist at Chicago calls me. How are you feeling? I said, I'm exhausted. I need to go to bed. And he goes, take it easy. He goes, I just got your data from Indiana. I'm not saying I would have kept you, but I might have kept you. Meaning I had gone downhill that fast in a month. And he goes, I know you're going to Vanderbilt next week. Take it easy this weekend. And so I go back home, rest for the weekend, and we're planning another 3-day trip to Vanderbilt to get tested there. Day 2 of Vanderbilt, they said, you're done. We've seen enough. You're going to the ICU. You're not leaving here without a new heart, because I was so sick. So we were supposed to be there for 3 days. We were there for 3 months.
Holy.
Yeah. And kids here. in Indiana, and we're in Nashville, Tennessee. And the thing is I wasn't in the hospital for that long. I was only in the hospital total like 28 days, but cardiac rehab, you have testing, you have biopsies and all this kind of stuff to check for rejection, all that. So you have to stay right by the hospital.
How long from the first day you showed up at Vanderbilt for that trip until you got the new heart in?
I was there on the 5th for testing. I got there on the 4th, but testing started on the 5th, and on the 6th, I remember I quit for the second time in my life. The first time I already told you about when my wife was like, "No, you're getting this." And that morning, Tuesday morning, was day 2 of testing, and I just looked at her. I was like, "I'm not going. I'm tired. I'm just going to stay here. I don't want to get out of bed." And she said, "Get your ass up. I'll get you a wheelchair." And she did. And so we got to the hospital, and that's when, they admitted me to the ICU that day. That was February 6th. And as time would tell, my donor, Casey, had been in the hospital for 4 days at that point in Texas. And I only know this because we've gotten friendly with the family, but he was already in the hospital. It's February 6th. My birthday is February 12th. And on the 11th, it's Super Bowl Sunday. They said, "Watch the Super Bowl, enjoy. No food after midnight. You're getting a new heart tomorrow." I was like, "On my birthday, I'm getting a new heart?" And they're like, "Yep." Wake up, my birthday, the nurse brings in balloons. Jorge, my man, he brought in balloons for my birthday. I'm just like, this is the greatest day of my life. And I can barely breathe. I can barely think. And I was just like, this is awesome. I hadn't shaved my head or my face because I was like, I'm not shaving until I get a new heart. So it was pretty long, and they shaved me. My wife and one of the nurses shaved me to get ready. 10 o'clock rolls around, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm starving. And they finally go, "Yeah, that heart's not going to work. You can go ahead and eat." And then they called me right back and said, "Hold on, don't eat. We might have another one." And then they called me 15 minutes later and they said, "Go ahead and eat. This one's not going to work either."
Oh gosh, you're getting yo-yoed on the heart.
So I had 2 false alarms on my birthday. And so we ate, we cried, kept waiting. So that was day 6, which again, this is nothing. I personally know people now that have been in the hospital for months sitting and waiting for a transplant, normal sized people that are competing against normal sized people for a donor heart, right? So on the one hand, I was in a rare pool of needing a big heart from a big person.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, because I was listed at status 2, which is the second highest. Highest is status 1. You're on a machine keeping you alive and you need a heart now or you're going to die. I was status 2, which means I had machines and drugs being pumped into me, not machines, but I had drugs being pumped into me to keep my heart from beating too much and also not stopping. But also I couldn't leave the hospital without a new heart, but they put an E at the end of it, 2E, which was an exception for my size. So it put me a little bit higher than a status 2 because if a big heart came, they're not going to give it to somebody normal size. They're going to give it to me. So that's where I was. It was day 6 on my birthday, and then waited 4 more days, February 16th, and finally Casey is my donor, his name. His family was told, like, he's done. He's not going to make it. He's never going to wake up. He'd been in and out of the hospital for years with chronic pneumonia. He was a smoker, lifetime smoker, and he was a big guy. So he wasn't a candidate for a lung transplant. He wasn't a candidate for anything. He was out. His brain was dead. For the most part. And so they were keeping him alive, and the family made the decision for him to be a donor. He saved 5 people that day, 2 teenagers with his kidneys, his corneas, and other organs, because he saved 5 lives. And I got his heart. And true story, his last name is Angel. Casey Angel is my angel. Yeah. So that's the beginning of my wife's charity called Pearls of Life, named after my dad, but also there's like a little biblical thing called Pearls of Wisdom in the Bible. It's kind of a phrase. And so we kind of did a play on words for both of those, and that's the name of the charity.
On February 16th?
February 16th, 2024 is when I got my new heart.
So you just rolled over 2 years.
Yeah. Just had my 2-year checkup. They said I'm going to live forever. So I got that going for me.
Nice.
Yeah,
there we go.
I got the...
I want to dive into this a little bit. One, how long did recovery take?
So what you do when you get a heart transplant is you trade one chronic disease for another one. I am chronically immunosuppressed for life because they give me drugs to kill my immune system so that I don't reject Casey's heart. And that's true of any transplant recipient. So these drugs are awful. They cause kidney failure. They cause liver failure. A lot of people end up needing a kidney or a liver later on because of the drugs. I'm in stage 3 kidney failure since transplant. My kidneys have gotten better, and they're stable. And I'm really close to stage 2, which is great news because pretty much anybody over 50, I'm 51 now, pretty much anyone over 50 is in stage 2 kidney failure. Like that's normal because you're over 50. So if I can get my kidneys up to like 5 more points, I'll be over 60. And that's the number, the EGFR number. And that'll put me in stage 2 kidney failure. And then I can relax a little bit about that.
Because you ended up spending in total 3 months down in Nashville.
Yeah. So I was out of the hospital. I was like, how long after, what's the record of getting out of here after heart transplant? And they said 5 days. I was like, I'm going to be out in 4. And I wasn't. They said it was a kid, and kids react a lot better than adults.
And does the process look like they just carve open your chest, detach everything of the old heart, and reattach like a new?
Yeah.
It's like wiring in like computers or something.
So because again, I went public in January of 24. So ESPN called my wife, and I said, absolutely not. I don't like Disney. I don't dig ESPN. I don't do that. I think Disney's an evil corporate empire. And so I didn't want to do it. And then they sent us a couple samples of other E60s that this man had produced, Dan Lindbergh. And I was like, okay, is he doing it? And they said, yeah, it's him. I said, all right, then you can be. So they just happened to be there in Nashville because that was the first time. They were trying to get to Chicago for my testing there, and they could get to Nashville. So they happened to be there, and I got admitted to the ICU. They didn't plan that. Nobody knew that was going to happen, but that's what happened. So they were actually there. So they have footage of it, and they filmed. I signed off. They filmed my whole heart transplant. So if you watch the movie Heart of Pearl, the E60, you can see my heart beat its last beat on a table in a bowl. It shows it. And then they show Casey's heart come out of a plastic bag, out of a plastic thing, out of a cooler, because they went and got it in Texas and flew it to Nashville. And then you see the doctor, Dr. Shaw, that did my surgery. He pulls it out.
Does Casey's heart stay on ice and get
in a cooler?
And then somehow, because it's like you just like get it started again.
So they reanimate, when they put it in. But yeah, like literally I'm on a table with no heart in my body.
It's not beating while it's on the way there.
No, it's done.
And you don't have a heart inside your, how are you staying alive?
They're pumping, the machines are pumping fluid through my body while the heart's being switched out. It's something. And so, there's literally not very long, but there's a few minutes where I'm sitting on a table with no heart in my body. And
then they get Casey's heart wired in.
Yep. And they reanimate, and I've got a pacemaker, external one sitting right here that's got wires put into his heart. And then I've got another one on my neck. I got 2 pacemakers, external ones that are keeping it beating because it needs to learn how to beat again because it's been stopped for a while.
Oh, so like they get it going, but then you also have to have the pacemakers to keep
everybody wakes up with external pacemakers.
Oh my goodness.
To train the heart to beat again. And so, you're strapped down because you're intubated. And so your arms are strapped down. They tell you all this beforehand so you don't wake up and freak out. But I woke up and freak out anyway. But we had a hand signal, my wife and I, and it was this because I knew I wanted to do this. But I couldn't get my hands together because they were strapped down. So it was this. And so I woke up and I did that. And she started crying and I started crying. And that's when I knew how close I was to dying. I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I was going to die. My brain was awake. I had oxygen going to my brain again. And I was like, I felt crappy.
It was like an instant that you noticed?
As soon as I woke up, I was like, I feel like crap, but oh my God, there's oxygen in my brain. I was like, I could feel my feet again. Like my hands, everything, I was like numb. I didn't realize how bad I was. I was weeks at most away from death. Like I didn't have much longer.
Dude.
I don't know, but geez.
But like you just from a feel, like you've been at the edge of death.
Intubated, and I was like, oh. I was going to die. That was the first time that I was like, I was going to die. I was very close. So recovery is brutal.
Because, you talk about being an NBA player, like you talk about training for that. You're like running wind sprints and doing, like, what does brutal training for heart transplant recovery look like?
Well, I've had lots of surgeries in my life. I've been put asleep a lot. I've fixed a lot of things and orthopedic injuries and all that kind of stuff. I'm getting back surgery next week, actually. But this was different. You have to watch the physical part of your chest being pulled back together by titanium, and there's a plate in there and there's wires holding me together. And I wanted out. I was like, get me out of here. I want to go back because we had an apartment rented. And I was like, get me out of here. I'm sick of this hospital food. I want to eat because I didn't have any plumbing problems. So I didn't have to be on a cardiac diet. Like a lot of people are like low sodium and no cholesterol and no fat and the food is bland and all that. I'm like, I don't have to do that because I don't have plumbing issues. I had electrical issues. I can eat whatever I want. Get me out. I want some Hattie B's. If you've ever been to Nashville, Hattie B's. Yeah. So they were like, here's the thing. We're going to check your heart and see if it's beating. So I'm still hooked up to everything. I got towers of drugs, and every day another drug would come off. But I mean, I had 2 towers of drugs, and they had what's called a PICC line. I had a wristband around my arm, an armband around my arm, with all these lines kept in order by this armband. And they all funneled into a PICC line, which came into one tube in my neck to give me all these drugs. And they'd have to change out the drugs every once in a while, and some of them I'd drop off after a day or so. And so I'm strapped to all this. I got the EKG monitor and everything. They're seeing if the heart's beating, and the pacemakers are making it beat. And they're like, okay, we're going to check it, see how the heart's doing, see if it's woken up. And my wife's in the room, and I sit up, and they turn it down. And I went, oh, room's dark. And I heard the EKG go, brrr. Casey's heart didn't wake up. So they said, you can't leave until that heart wakes up. So and by the way, they turned it back on, obviously. And my wife would never admit this. And she says, no, that's not what I said. But she said, I'll not use the cuss word that she used because I know you don't like using that word on your podcast. But she looked at the doctor after I woke back up. She goes, don't ever effing do that again. Like I said, she loves me.
Yeah.
And so that they never turned it all the way down again, but then they check it another couple days and they're like, I know you want out of here, but the heart's not waking up. And so they pulled out one of the pacemakers. And then I just had the one in my neck, and they're like, if you want out of here, you got to get a pacemaker. And I was like, no, I had a pacemaker and a defibrillator before. And they took that out when I got the transplant because they're like, the new heart, I won't need it. And his heart has never woken up. I have a pacemaker. That was the only way I could get out of the hospital. So I went in and I was livid. I was so mad because I was like, no, I wanted this heart to be by itself. But it won't beat without a pacemaker. So this pacemaker is keeping me alive. I have an app on my phone. It has to stay with me all the time. It constantly updates the office or whatever. So if there's an issue or I don't feel well, I can call and they can look at my chart and be like, oh yeah, get in here. But so far, none of that. I get it checked. I had it checked in October.
Do you get like your battery changed?
Yeah.
Like, how often does that happen?
It lasts 11 years.
Oh, okay.
So, and it shows me on the app how much long, like it knows if the battery starts to degenerate or if the wires are not doing well. So, but I got it checked and they turned it down to 30. They don't turn it all the way off. They turn it down to 30. The room gets dark. And I just kind of get tired. The room gets warm, and they turn it back up. They go, nope. So at this point, it's been 2 years. It won't wake up. It won't beat on its own. But, fun fact that we found out from my donor family, Casey's family, his wife, Pam, and his sister, Megan, they were like, well, we were just surprised they could use his heart. And I was like, oh, pray tell. And they said he had to be resuscitated at my house. Like his heart stopped at home. And they zapped him. And then on the way to the hospital, he coded twice. So they were like, we didn't even think his heart would be usable. So it's stopped twice on its own, 3 times maybe, if they're correct. And so it's not surprising knowing all that it wouldn't wake back up. And after about 6 months, if it hasn't, it's not gonna. So
yeah. Well, talk about that aspect of, building a relationship with your donor family. And I mean, there's a very moving scene from the E60 where Casey's wife and sister,
his sister's husband was there, and their son William, who was at 12 at the time.
Like they get to listen to
Casey's
heart beating in your chest.
Yeah, and they're the ones that made the decision for him to be a donor. They said, we think he is, but he wasn't awake, obviously, to make the decision. So they made the decision for him to be a donor, and so I owe my life to them, my extended life to them. And so when we got to meet, my sister was a lot like my mother. She still is. We have a wonderful relationship, and my sister's never been mean to anybody in her whole life. If anybody's mean to my sister, I will murder them. And so when Casey's sister is in this room and she's listening to his heart, and she puts her hand on my chest and she goes, hey, Bubba. You can see my face in the thing, but it didn't really capture. Like I almost fell down. Like it brought back memories of me and my sister, and I just was like, oh my God, she's she's lost her brother. And she's given me life with it, and she's just saying hi to her little brother whose heart is in my chest. And I was the vehicle for that emotional moment for her. And I couldn't process it at the time. And all I did was try not to fall down, overcome by emotion, because it's an incredibly powerful moment. And I was really glad they caught it on film. But, like I said, I didn't want to do that movie, but they told a great father-son story between my dad and me, and then me and my son, Ozzy. The football player, and they did a great job, and the reason why I'm okay with it is because it's a great tool for people to educate themselves about organ donation. And both sides of it. The donor family is having the worst day of their life, having to make a decision to end their sibling's life, their husband's life, because he's not going to wake up. But they saved 5 lives in the process. And you can save up to 8 lives, but people don't think about, skin donations and corneas, that doesn't exactly save a life, but it can make somebody's life better.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I didn't do it for the fame. I didn't do it for the notoriety. I did it for other people. To educate people about, that I've got bonus days. I don't get paid anymore for any appearances I do. I just did a Pacers appearance yesterday. I don't get paid for anything. I just ask people to donate to my wife's charity. Yeah. And so that's my life now. I'm just trying to help other people with whatever day I've got left. It's bonus days at this point. They don't give me a prognosis. I'm literally the tallest person to ever have a heart transplant. They told me 6'3" was the minimum for my donor. Turns out Casey was 5'11", but he was a big dude, and the heart's huge. Obviously, it's working. So I don't make complaints, but I go, what's my prognosis? They're like, we just want to keep this heart beating as long as possible. That's all they say.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. Nobody knows. There's no comparing me to anybody else. I'm an interesting case.
An interesting case. How does the mental aspect of a transplant, specifically a heart transplant, how did you deal with that? Because the fact that you are grateful and, your life gets extended, but that comes at others' despair.
Yeah, there was, so leading up to it, there was a lot of anxiety. And they put me on some antidepressant for 10 days or so, because I was like watching commercial and I just started crying. I was just like, this isn't going well. So they gave me a little antidepressant in there while I was in the hospital. And I went to counseling and then talked to people. And
so like in counseling, when you think about, because there might be others out there that are, one, the side of, donors, and like when you go and get your license renewed or whatever, deciding if you want to be an organ donor. And 2, if you're ever on the receiving end, how you process the fact that for you to continue to get these bonus days, that someone had to give up their days.
Yep. It's survivor's guilt. And it's very real. And went to counseling after transplant for that too. Those first 6 months, I was so sick. Again, brain, oxygen, singing dumb songs. Like I'm back to, making up words to songs and tunes and singing to my kids and stuff, but I'm sick. Like I'm just like flu. Like I stink. And after about 6 months, I go, Doc, what is going on? I'm still sick. Like I thought I was going to feel better. He goes, you were dying for 3 years. Your body is recovering from dying for 3 years. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so then it went back to sports mode. Then it was like, oh, I'm still I'm rehabbing. I'm recovering from surgery.
Yeah.
And so that made it a lot easier for me. And then also obviously the drugs coming off. I started like 4 times a day, over 100 pills a day, and little things that I had to put under my tongue and liquid and all this stuff to keep me from getting thrush and viral and all these different things. And so there's all of that, and it comes and it narrows down. And now I only take about 25, 26 pills a day, most of them in the morning.
Only 25, 26
every 12 hours for life, baby. That's my anti-rejection drugs. And then it causes bone density. And I've got a left hip now that's starting to lose a little bone density. So I take calcium, I take magnesium, and their prescription. Like I have to take them every 12 hours to try to keep fighting that. So, but yeah, it's trading one chronic illness for another. I can't eat certain things now, no raw food, no sashimi because of risk of infection. Anybody can get, you eat clams or oysters or whatever. Anybody can get food poisoning, but it can put me in the hospital. And so it's just not worth it. It's risk reward at this point.
Yeah.
So I know some people that have had transplants are like, oh, I had sushi. I'm like, just, if I'm in Hawaii or the Caribbean and I see them catch it, I might risk that. But even then, there's just going to be some risk, because it's being frozen and shipped across the country and all that kind of stuff. It's like,
Do you feel a responsibility to go out and make the most of this bonus time you've been given.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, my goal now is just help other people.
Yeah.
My wife's charity, I go out and give speeches for it, and
and let's dive into what specifically you guys are doing with the charity and how you're making an impact.
So it's called Pearls of Life, like I said, and it is to educate people. Its primary mission, it's pearlsoflife.org. If anybody wants to look it up, pearlsoflife.org. And its mission is to educate people about being a donor, and what it can do, how you can help other people with being a donor. Encouraging people, educating people to why, dispelling the myths about organ donation. One of the most popular one is they're not going to save your life if you're in the hospital because they want your organs. If you think about that for 5 seconds, obviously that's pretty silly. You think a doctor's going to be like, oh, well, we could save him, but I want his organs. Like you would never have you'd never practice medicine ever again. And it's actually a law that if a transplant center is ever found to do something along those lines, not only would the doctor lose their license, the transplant program would be shut down permanently. Like hundreds of people would lose their jobs. So it's not something that anybody would really actually consider. Are mistakes made? Probably. And people come up, they're like, oh, this happened in Kentucky in 2021. And I'm like, yeah, it was a test. Like somebody was somebody told me that something happened in Kentucky in like 2021 where a guy woke up during his heart transplant or something like that. And it turned out he was comatose and he was in a test. His heart was being tested for potential being a donor, and he woke up.
Wow.
So it wasn't during his transplant. But again, there's those myths out there, and there's all kinds of things that people. So love going and giving speeches to Carmel High School. Talked about it yesterday to Elevance Health downtown, and educating people about it. And then also the other part of it is, as I told you, like we thought we were going to be in Nashville, Tennessee for 3 days, and we ended up being there for 3 months. We almost had to sell our house just trying to cover kid care expenses down there because, they have a hospitality. A lot of the transplant centers have a hospitality room. Well, so you get a bed. Like that's like if my wife wanted to go sleep in a bed as opposed to the couch, which she never would. She never left my side for 28 days in the hospital. But she had the opportunity, if there's room in the hospitality room, it's like $25 a night. But you share a kitchen with 4 other rooms. So that's good if there's like a caregiver, but if you're a family, where are your kids going to sleep?
Yeah.
Where her sisters wanted to come and help her out and give her a break. And so we ended up renting an apartment across the street from Vanderbilt. And then that's where I ended up moving out from the hospital into that place because again, we were stuck there because I had to go into Vanderbilt every day. I can't commute to Vanderbilt every day for my testing and all that stuff. It's too much wear and tear. It's a 4.5 hour drive. So we ended up staying there at this apartment for 3 months. And then they finally were like, okay, you can go home for 1 weekend. And they got to go home for a weekend. But again, all this costs a lot of money and travel. And then after I move out of the apartment, then I'm still going down there every month. And I got to get hotels and gas money and all that stuff. So the travel expenses built up. And so the other function of Pearls of Life is to help families that have to travel for transplant like we did. So we've already been able to make some disbursements. We've got a couple others lined up. To help others. One family or one man was in Cleveland waiting for his wife. She was waiting for a kidney transplant, and we paid his rent for a while. And then we've made a donation to the Joe Beretta Foundation, which is in Nashville. Joe passed away, but his wife runs the foundation, and they're building a house to house people that have to be stuck.
That's incredible.
And so it's more geared towards family. As opposed to just like if it's a couple that have adult children and it's just one of them that needs it and they're not going to be visiting, like their kids can come get a hotel room, right? We're talking more about, maybe your child that's 8 years old has 3 siblings and you have to go to Cleveland and you live in Indiana. Like you can't commute. So we're going to try to help out families like that it's like you kind of have to move to a strange city, or maybe we have to pay your mortgage because you're going to lose your house because you're not working. You can't just say, bye mom and one kid and dad has the other kids home, so that we're trying not to break up families just because one of them needs a transplant. Yeah. And it could be the mother and father too. But we're not trying to focus on any one person. We're just trying to help as many people as possible. And so that's where, it goes back to I've given speeches at the International Heart and Lung Transplant Association in April of last year. That was a good one. I was talking to the doctors that saved my life and the people in that field. And so that was fun. But yeah, just here and there. Like I've talked to some drug companies that do do blood tests for rejection. We're working with them. And again, they're just in exchange for my time and travel, they're just making donations to the charity so that the charity can help other people. We got a golf tournament coming up July 27th. Save the date. It's at Sagamore. Anybody that plays golf, come on down. We got some former NBA players coming. I'm working on some huge names, but I can't say their names because they haven't committed. But Sean Elliott has committed. He's a broadcaster for the San Antonio Spurs. He's had a kidney transplant, played a long time. He's actually 24 years out. I just talked to him the other day. He committed immediately. He's like, I'm there. So he's going to play. My former teammate and friend, Greg Ostertag from Kansas, he played in the NBA for 13 years after donating a kidney to his sister. So he's on the other side of it. So that's two of them right there. And then we have some other they're superstars that have been touched by transplant in some way. And I'm not going to say names until I get them to commit, but we're working on that. But no matter what, it's going to be a fun event. Sagamore is a great track, and we're going to have a little thing the night before to try to do the business side and solicit donations and all that. And then golf will be fun on Sunday or Monday.
Scott, man, it's been a pleasure to hear your story. I mean, from growing up and making it to the NBA to then this second campaign of trial and tribulation and hard work and effort. A lot of people think, you retire from the career and you're like, I'm just chilling, playing golf and pickleball and hanging out. And your biggest battle was fought well after retirement. Yeah. You're a testament, man. It is really, really special. And, Carmel, the state of Indiana, we're lucky to have you here being an advocate for organ donation everywhere, whether it be, obviously you were in Vanderbilt, but I think that's an important lesson for people that are listening to the show about, when you select to be an organ donor, that makes a big impact. Rounding out, I do want to talk a few things Indiana before we wrap up here.
Absolutely.
First one being, what's your favorite Indiana Pacers moment?
I really enjoyed being teammates with Reggie Miller. Learned a lot from him. I already had a work ethic, but it was my favorite thing because I played with Ray Allen, I played with Peja Stojakovic, Mike Bibby, I played with some great shooters. I know I'm leaving people out, but I played with some great shooters, and some of them were pretty particular about pregame warmups and stuff. And I always like to go out and rebound for those guys because I wanted to know where their misses would go, so I'd know where to go for a rebound. Give myself a little bit of an edge, hopefully, on figuring out where the ball's going to go when they miss. And everybody's a little different. Some people miss long, some people miss short, typically. And so I would go out and try to rebound for Reggie. I was like, which ball do you want? He'd say, they're all round. And I loved that because that's why it's it doesn't matter. I'm going to make it. And so that was just a great memory of being teammates with him. One of the many things that I love about that dude. Getting to the Eastern Conference Finals against Detroit, that rivalry was just awesome. That was a great away. When I played for Detroit, it wasn't that great. We were the new breed and they had the teal jerseys, and it wasn't a whole lot of Detroit pride. But man, when we were playing for the Pacers and we're in the Eastern Conference Finals against them, we go up there and they had an announcer going, Detroit basketball, and the crowd would go nuts. It was great until that one thing happened. But yeah.
Yeah, to that one thing. When you think about what was the story behind the wild hair and the facial hair and the I mean, you didn't paint your nails in the NBA, but did you do it in college?
Yeah, I painted my nails in college. Thought it was fun. And then I just got tired of it. But, the first time I dyed my hair was in 7th grade. So it's always been it's not like I started doing it when I was on TV. It wasn't try to get attention. It was just, I wanted to see what it looked like. I would shave when I started being able to shave, because even in college, I couldn't grow a mustache like this. It was always gapped right here, and then it was gapped up here, and now it's just it won't stop. But that was basically it. It was just I want to see what it looks like, and it's going to grow back, so I'll just grow it out and shave it into something fun. I've done monkey tail.
Just for the heck of it?
Yeah, just see what it looked like and then shave it and start over. Unfortunately, the hair on top of my head is migrated. So I can't grow my hair long anymore on top of my head. But, the rest of it, my facial hair still grows. But I had a really long Fu Manchu last year, and I got really sick. I think it was holding bacteria in there. So I'm not keeping long facial hair anymore. I think it was just holding bacteria, and I had to go to the hospital for 4 days.
The facial hair about took you out.
I was man, it's holding too much bacteria in there. So just in case, I'm keeping my facial hair pretty short.
Do you still like to make it down to Pacers games? I've
been to one this year. A friend of mine got tickets. Here's the thing. I'm I'm a basketball fan. I'd be an idiot if I didn't appreciate what basketball has done for me in my life and taken me where I've been taken and where I live today, you know? But at the same time, I'm not a big fan of the NBA, and I will fully admit that. So I'm not going to go pay to ever go to an NBA game, but I have a lot of connections, so I'm lucky. I get to go for free when I go. This year, I've been, like I said, one game, and it was a friend of mine. It wasn't the Pacers. He had tickets, and he was like, "Hey man, you want to go?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go," and had a blast. They're not very good, but
I mean, they're building the pieces right to put something together next year, hopefully.
When you're getting fined for tanking, yeah, you're putting pieces in place. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not mad at them because here's the thing: I always critiqued the Pacers when I was on the team and before and after. After knowing about the Pacers and living here after, the Simon's curse is that they want to remain competitive at all times as owners, and they've done that. They're always competitive. They're always about to make the playoffs or they make the playoffs, right? The sacrifice for that is you're going to get a medium draft pick. You're not going to get a lottery pick when you're competitive. If you're really bad, you're going to get a top pick and maybe somebody that can change your franchise. Because as a small market team, and I've played for several, you're not going to get superstars that want to come play in Sacramento, in Cleveland, in Indiana. So you have to get a draft pick and get lucky like San Antonio did with Tim Duncan. And now they got Wemby. You have to get lucky with somebody that's going to want to stay, even though they're a transitional player that's like going to take your franchise to a new level. Yeah. And the Pacers just haven't had that. So like I said, it's a Simon's curse that they want to make sure they're competitive, and they do that for the most part. But this year, maybe they can use this draft pick, whatever they get, to get somewhere where they haven't been before, or they were there last year, but to the top of that, it's always tough. It's always tough when you're a small market team to compete because you either got to blow the cap, and nobody can afford to do that in a small market. Yeah,
because no one is just like the biggest stars, like LeBron James when he was leaving Cleveland was not like, where I'm going, Indianapolis.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's fire up.
I'm a free agent. I've always wanted to live in Indiana, or Cleveland. He left Cleveland. He's from there. That's a small market too. Yeah. So.
Okay, these are the final 3 questions that we ask every guest who comes on the show. Obviously, you've played all over the country, from the West Coast, spent time in Kansas, now you're in Indiana. What's something the world needs to know about Indiana?
It's not the Midwest. We're in the Eastern time zone, but it's like the Midwest.
There we go.
The weather sucks, but the people are really cool.
Yeah. Okay, this is the part where we get to learn about another spot across the state that you like. A place could be in your backyard, could be anywhere. What's a hidden gem in Indiana?
I'm a big fan of Bongies. I love that place.
Yeah, up in Perkinsville?
Yep. I haven't been there for a while. They've changed ownership, and I just it's far away. I don't leave the roundabouts very much. I live in Carmel, and I love it, but I love that place. And, there's been places that pop up here and there that are just, they're fun. And that's the cool thing, again, about Indiana that a lot of people don't know is it's growing. It's changing. Yeah. And with that comes new food restaurants and new things to do, continues to surprise. And that, we're not in the Midwest, but it's very Midwest-like where people are nice and the weather is crappy. But
okay, finally, who's a Hoosier we need to keep on our radar? Someone who's doing big things.
Dawn Pollard.
Oh, yeah.
She's if you're lucky enough to be represented by her when buying or selling a home, you're in a select crowd. She gets a ton of referrals. She's got an office right there in the middle of the Village of West Clay, but she works all over the state. Not all over the state, but all over the area, the metropolitan area. Jennifer Magley, she's the reason I'm on the show. Yeah. She's all over the place. Her and my dad, her dad and me. He's a Jayhawk. He was Mr. Basketball in Indiana.
Yeah,
when he was in high school.
Yeah, up in South Bend.
Yep. And Jen Magley, she's all over the place. She's emceed my wife's charity gig last year, the gala. She did an incredible job doing that, and then she introduced me to you. That's why I'm here.
Scott, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, giving us some time today. Your journey, it's incredible. You talk about from Utah out to the West Coast, and then Kansas, Detroit, Sacramento, Indianapolis, Cleveland and Boston.
Yeah,
and then Nashville. Obviously, a large part of a large moment in your life happened down there. You've been all over.
Yeah.
It's gonna be cool. One, I gotta follow the Rainbow Warriors now. Let's go.
Yeah.
And two, man, just your down to earthedness. I think that's something that when people meet, whether it be NBA stars or NFL stars or whoever it could be, they start to get like, I don't know, Like they're not living in the same world. And then clearly, you know, sitting here talking for almost 2 hours now, you live in the same world that we're living in. And man, you're just a testament, so inspirational. And yeah, that should be everyone's kind of calling card to go and become an organ donor.
Yeah, go to pearlsoflife.org. We're gonna do a golf tournament, and then we're gonna do some more stuff. But yeah, dude, I'm on bonus days. I don't know when it's gonna be now. There'll be something, and so I'm just gonna keep on keeping on and telling my story and trying to help other people while I got time.
Amazing, man. Well, we appreciate you stopping by. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, Nate.
This show is made possible by our friends up at Sweetwater. Whether you're looking to start a podcast or take your content to the next level, click the link in the description to see all my gear recommendations at Sweetwater. If you want a behind-the-scenes look at everything we're doing across the state, make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Nate Spangle. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of what makes the Hoosier State great. We'll see you next time here on Get In.